If I was good enough, if I were good enough. Well, what's the difference between if I was or if I were? Is there a difference? And how does that impact your coaching conversations today? Well, welcome to Coaching Genius Live. So glad you can join us this episode. Well, if you're new to our channel, do remember to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to stay tuned with all the latest content that we have for you. So whether you're a speaker, a coach, a leader, a parent, a relationships specialist, this channel is for you because we're going to teach you every single week with new videos to help you improve your conversation. Because this is what we truly believe in, that coaching is conversational mastery, and one conversation at a time, we're going to inspire change and maximize potential. Are you ready for this episode? Now, today we're going to talk about if I were, if I was, and what's the difference and how you can use that in your conversation to really create change for your clients and for yourself. Now, too often we mix them up. We would say things. You'll hear things with your friends saying that, if I were, if I was like this, if I were like that, if I could be better, if I was born different, if I were from this country, if I were of a higher certain tier, if I was richer, if I was, if I were poorer, if I was having this thing, if I was having so. People are confusing between what's if I was versus if I were. And today we're going to demystify just that to help you become better at the way you communicate and help you become more precise in the way you inspire. We're going to show you from two perspectives. One, it's from the linguistic perspective, and two, it's from the practitioner perspective of how you can apply this as a leader, as a coach, as an influencer. Are you ready for this? Okay, great. I'm so excited to share this with you because every single week, if you are new to our channel as well, I love to share new bite-sized information about wordplay, and this will really inspire you and get you better in your conversation. So let's take a look at the very first one, which is if I were. So if I were, it's actually in the grammar, the subjunctive mood. It's a subjunctive mood. What does it mean? It means that it's used to talk about hypothetical situations or things that are contrary to fact. So for example, if I were smarter, I would be in a better school. If I were born different, my life would be better. So if I were, it's something subjective. It has this notion of hypothetical situation, which has not yet happened. Or that's never happened before. So this is something that we are making it up. If I were a girl, if I was this, if I were a astronaut, I would be the best one, flying all the way to the moon, flying to Mars, flying to Venus. If I were a mathematician, I would be able to crack the code for the black hole. If I were an astrophysicist, I would be able to inspire change, and I would be able to create the best spacecraft ever. If I were a speaker, I would be able to inspire countless of people. So if I were have this notion of things that doesn't happen, it's hypothetical in nature and it's unlikely to be true. Now let's take a look at the next one, which is if I was. So if I was, it's something that has happened in the past. So example, if I was more disciplined when I was working on my project, I would have saved a lot of precious time. So if I was is a premise based on things that has happened in the past, right? So it's evident, that means it's possible, it's plausible, it's true. And so if I see if I was more diligent, I would be able to produce more videos. Okay, if I was less lazy, I would be able to become a better coach. If I was less procrastinating, I would be able to get more clients in. I'll be able to do my audio transcription. I'll be able to secure more clients. I'll be able to practice more coaching. If I was a diligent coach, so for example, if I was always presupposes that this has happened in the past and things could be a bit different. Okay, so if I were, it's really hypothetical. It might not happen in your life. If I was, what happened in your life? So these two have a very interesting play that we can use. Sometimes I call this word play. So if you meet a client, now, if you meet a client, you can always make this distinction for them, right? For example, you can create something for them and say, hey, if you were this, what would you be? If you were a color, what would you be? If you were a plate of food, if you were an animal, what would you be? If you were this, right? So we are actually creating a hypothetical situation for the client to help them to create connection using metaphors, using analogies, using typographies, using things to help them create connections. So if I were. When you see if I was, if you was, right? If I was this, if I was that, what would it be? Now, if I was presupposes on the past, so then we allow them to take facts that happens in the past and help them move forward. So let me share with you how we can use this as a practitioner using this create process. Now, number one, you can use if I were able, what would happen? If we were successful, what would happen? If you were stronger, what would happen? Right? So, for example, when we use the word were, we tend to have this notion of creation, this notion of co-creative process. So in a coaching process, when we use the word were, there's a notion of co-creation. So when we think about this, one of the things I encourage coaches to use is that avoid using if I was, because if I was the past. If I were this, if you were this, if we were successful, what would it look like for us? Well, I was terrible in the last session. I was a bad coach in the last session. If I was this, you see, if I was, always presupposes something that's happened factually in the past, and this empowering you in the future. So by changing the word were, we're creating potential possibilities in the future. So this is what we're going to do in the creative process, in the co-creative process. We want to use the word were to create and inspire and change the minds of the person to say, hey, if we were successful. So for example, in the coaching agreement, when you're agreeing with your clients, we're creating agreement with your audience, with your team, with your leaders, with your children, you can say, if we were to have fun together, what would that look like for you? If we were to be successful, how would it look like for you? If we were to be a wonderful team, to build a strong team culture, how would that look like for you, all of us? What would it seem like? How would it feel like for all of us if we were? Okay, you can also try this. If you were, putting all things aside, if you were that person, if you were that man, if you were that woman, if you were that influencer, if you were that leader that you said you want to be, what would be different? If you were that person that said, hey, I'm going to overcome this challenge of laziness. If you were that fitness expert, what would that be for you? So were creates possibilities. I want to try this out, right? With your clients, with yourself. Try this to yourself as well. You tell yourself, hey, if I were this today, what would be different for me? If I were this today, if I were to take today differently, rather than going through the day in the same cycle again and again and again, if I were to repeat this day differently, how would it look like for me? If I were to change things up, how would it look like for me? What would be different? What would change if I were? Then try this with your clients. Mr. Client, if you were this, if you were that, if you were to decide between option A and B, how would that turn out for you? If you were able and you have more than just two options, in fact, you have option C, what would option C become for you? If we were successful, how would this turn out for us? So if you are a salesperson, you can use were as well. If we were successful, if we were able to create something together, if we were able to create the results that you want, what would that look like for you? Creating a sense of possibilities. So now try this word in your practice, whether you're a coach, a speaker, influencer, you want to infuse the word if I were, if you were, if we were into the conversation. Now, is there a difference between I, we, you? Yes, there is. So if you're talking about co-creative, it's more of we, if we were. If you're talking about inspiring someone to take action, if you were listening right now to my voice, you would experience life on a whole new plane. If you were doing this right now. So it's more directive because I'm telling you. Now, if I want to relate my story and I want to help, I want you to empathize with my story, I could say this. If I were stronger, if I were more confident, if I were less anxious about my skin color, if I were this, things would be different. So I share with you one of my experiences was this. When I was growing up, I always have stage fright. I was worried about my speaking because sometimes I stumble and I might stumble on my words. I might swallow my words because I'm not sure if I can do it. And plus, I'm not exactly the tallest in class. I'm the shortest in class, and I don't have the skin color. I'm not from this country. I don't have that qualification, and this and that. So all those things are rising up within me, right? But all these things are impeding me. Because I'll think to myself, if I was stronger, if I was this, if I was more bold, if I was this. So I'm always looking at my past. Until one day, I realized the difference between if I were versus if I was. If I were, begin to open my mind full of possibility and say this to myself and say, hey, you know what? The past is in the past. I can't change the past because the past is linear, but I can move forward in the future. Well, what would my future look like? If I were a great public speaker, well, there will be clarity in my words. If I were a great masterful coach, My approach to my clients will be one that's peaceable, will be one with unconditional positive regard, will be one with unconditional love, lovingly calling the client to hold accountability towards their own progress and success. Well, if I'm a masterful leader inspiring my team, I'll be respectful for every single person's point of view. I want to honor their point of view. I want to have flexibility in my conversation. I want to inspire them. Now, when that changed, my state shifted. My outlook to life changed because now, instead of looking at things that were going wrong, now I'm looking at things that are going right. I'm looking for possibilities that has not yet happened, and I'm going to create them. And that creative process makes me really excited and helps me to move forward. So try this out this coming week. When you listen to, when you go through live, stop and pause yourself and say, am I thinking if I was, or am I going to if I were? So try this out. Change your language and change your life. The quality of your life is determined by the quality of your questions to yourself. So I always say there's the quality of your relationship. It's also a direct representative of the quality of the conversation. The way and the words you use really matters, especially if you're a coach, if you're a conversationalist, and to yourself as well. What you tell yourself today will truly make or break. I always tell coaches all the time and leaders and individuals that if you want to build life up, if you want to build confidence in yourself, quit saying that you can't and start saying that you can. Because if you were a great coach, if you were a great speaker, you want to change the words you use on yourself. Okay, so hope this inspires you, this short message of if I were, if I was, and hope this really helps you along the way. If you like this video, give us a thumbs up and do share with your friends as well. And until next time, this is Jedi here at Coaching Changes Lives. I'll see you in our next video.